Hi, I'm Jeanette Boyle, and I'm the Director of Professional Experience at Alpha Crucis University College. I oversee the team of people that place students into the schools that you will have heard from. You will have heard from either most likely Emily Kilger or Jeff Voller, and you most likely will be anticipating seeing a student coming to your school fairly soon for prac placement. So what I'm going to go through today is I'm just going to spend the next half an hour or so just going through the mentor guide that either Emily or Jeff will have sent to you. They will have sent you this, and they will also send you some key appendices that maybe, well, definitely will be useful for you. And in some cases, like the lesson evaluation sheet, is required for you to fill in. So if you just give me a second, I'll just share my screen. Okay, so this is the information for mentor teachers and schools that you will receive in your email amongst the other appendices. As you can see, there's a fair bit of information in there. I'm just going to explain this. Obviously, take some time to read through this, and also know that we'll have a Q&A session put into place. I'll be emailing all of the mentor teachers probably about a couple of weeks before PEC starts. I won't give the dates here and now so that this video can be used again next time, but just know that whenever the dates are that either Emily and or Jeff have spoken to you about, roughly about a fortnight before, I'll be contacting all the mentor teachers around Australia, and I'll be offering a Q&A session. Now, you may find that this video answers all of your questions. You may find the guidebook does as well. Great, excellent. It's really for those people that still have questions. So just keep your eye out for that as you go along. Okay, so basically the role of the mentor teacher is there to support the tertiary education student and to guide them, and particularly when they start and everything is new, it really is to show them what the school life is about, everything from being in the classroom, staff meetings, bus duty, might be a school excursion or athletics carnival, all of those things that we know happen every day in the life of the school. It's also there for those students that may be on the way to graduating, so they might be on their second last or definitely their final PECs, and they're really at the point now where they're either up to a 0.8 or a full-time load, and you're there to really support them as they make their way through to where they are on their way to graduation and being a part of the teaching workforce. When we put these PECs units together, we are accredited by two organisations, and it depends on whether it's an early childcare centre or a school. All of our PECs units, which currently are in 2 degrees, one is for Bachelor of Early Childhood and Primary, but we've also got a graduate diploma of early childhood happening as well. All of those are accredited by CEQA. All of the degrees, whether it be undergraduate or postgraduate, that are in a school, primary or high school, they are accredited by NESA in New South Wales, and that's the New South Wales Education Standards Authority. So you may be in another state, Tasmania, Queensland or whatever, and you've got a student there that you're mentoring. Regardless, if you come to us with a question, particularly about policy or anything like that, I will be referring to the NESA framework, because that's what our university is basically accredited under, and our courses as well. That, of course, is all under AITSL, and therefore AITSL then governs everything that we do right from birth all the way through to year 12. That we have been asked to encourage mentor teachers to undergo any kind of professional development. AITSL actually provides something called the Supervising Pre-Service Teachers Online Training Program. So if you can see me hovering my mouse there, it's the hyperlink there. if you click on that, and I've actually done this training program, it's 5 modules. It does take a while, but it is very, very worthwhile, and it gives you really rich learning to take into the classroom and to really give quality feedback to your tertiary education student, and to help them to be able to build their pedagogy and their teaching practice throughout the time that they're with you. I really thoroughly recommend it. As a bit of an added bonus too, if you're in New South Wales, you can log that onto ETAMS, and that can go towards your teacher accreditation there. But likewise, in any other state too, you can log this as your professional development with your regulatory authority there, as part of your teacher accreditation too. So, and again, it's 5 modules, so you get to log quite a few hours worth there. If you've got a few hours you need to build up for your state, it is quite handy. But having said that, it is very, very useful information too. I actually got a lot out of it, even somebody that's in the tertiary sector. The other thing too is the New South Wales Department of Education have a page called Supervising Teachers. I have no doubt that teachers that are watching this, that are already in a New South Wales Department of Education school, will know about this. But you can click on that as well, and it's got some information there that can help people just generally with how to supervise teachers, what things they need to look out for, how to feedback well, what to do if a student's at a risk of failure, all of these kinds of things. Okay, so as we go through, everything that we assess is assessed against the AITSL Graduate Teaching Standards, GTSD, and that then comes down to the NESA Graduate Teaching Standards, which basically is the same thing. You may, when you see those, because you'll see this come up, particularly with things like the final teaching report, and you've got the guidelines you can work through there, and you look at it and it looks very, very familiar, because it looks a lot like the 7 professional standards for teachers that have been given to us by AITSL as registered teachers. So it's very much the same. And as you go through this mentor training course, it actually steps through the different stages of, you've graduated, you've now just achieved the 7 professional standards as a graduate, and then going into lead, competent lead, and et cetera, et cetera. So, yeah, so you'll see how that all sort of pans out as you go through your career as a teacher, and how that relates back to the tertiary education student that you've got under your belt right now. Okay. Mentor teacher responsibilities. Okay, so mentor teacher responsibilities, first of all, they will be working under the school supervisor, whether that be the assistant principal or the director of studies, or someone along those lines, who will first of all provide them with a timetable for them to work with. It could be that you're sharing this tertiary education student with maybe 2 or 3, oh sorry, not 2 or 3, probably 1 or 2 other teachers, and you may very well find that the timetable is put together that can try and marry together all the different KLAs as best as possible. If you're primary, it's most likely they're that tertiary education student, or if you're in a childcare centre, they're going to be with you 100% of the time. There is a bit of a blurb there, but without reading it in a lot of detail, basically that policy that I've actually copied and pasted in there is to just help people that are putting timetables together, to help them understand that NESA only and AITSL only require that the KLAs that you're putting in there are as diverse as practicable, which is that bit that I put there in bold. So that means that if you've got 2 KLAs you're trying to put into a timetable, might be maths, science, or something like that, or might be, say, English and HISI or something like that, you don't have to sit there and like have it have it completely 50-50 split. You might find that one, we can only, because of the timetable, get 40% of the teaching happening there, 60% happening there. That's fine. The main thing is that you've tried to make it as diverse as practicable. Obviously, if you're in primary, you want to try and cover all of the KLAs. If you're in secondary, you want to try and cover the 2 main KLAs that the student will be learning, particularly as an undergraduate. and even as a postgrad, and then if there's other areas of expertise that they wanted to try out, they maybe wanted to just pick up a language class or something like that, that you've got that diversity in there. Supervising contact with the or supervising the TES's contact with the children, and just while I talk about that. We should never ever leave a tertiary education student alone for any reason. So if I've got to duck out the class and grab that photocopying, well, guess who's going to be coming with you to duck out the class and grab that photocopying, okay? So there should be a registered teacher of some sort with that tertiary education student at all times, okay? Providing background information on the classes and individual children. So that usually happens, you'll have an interview with them. They will have, first of all, you will have heard from Emily and Jeff and said, look, and I'll go back a step. They will have contacted the school, spoken to the principal or director of studies or whatever the role is, and said, look, we have the student we need to place. They've said, yep, look, we'll find out. You've heard from your superior and you've gone, yes, I'll take on this student, and then the interview happens. Round about that time when the interview happens is about the time when you'd be starting to tell them a little bit about the class. Oh, yes, when you go into grade 7, we've got a few students on IEPs there, or, this one here, we've got a student that is deaf and we have to have them in the front of the class or whatever. Okay, and so that's where you start to at least make initial contact, or make the student aware initially of what those classes involve. Obviously the obligations in this handbook, and you're establishing regular discussions to evaluate their performance. Now, this is one where, again, I really found going through the mentor 5 modules with AITSL was very, very handy, because they actually run through how to feedback well, to feedback in a way that doesn't come across as accusing or aggressive or anything like that, where they're sort of using more of a questioning. And so, how do you think that went today? What do you think you could do to actually improve in your pedagogy or your teaching practice? So it was actually really that particular module was actually quite handy to watch and to go through. So strongly recommend that. But with this dot point in particular, just obviously when you're getting together with the student, active listening. So you're listening. So what you're actually telling me is you really struggle when you were trying to converse with this student and to help them to understand this particular practice that you're trying to teach. Something like that, okay? Knowing too that hopefully it'll happen on the other side, doesn't always, but hopefully the teacher education student will also be an active listener as well, and not wanting to jump in and justify all of the time. Assist the TES or the teacher education student with planning lessons, gathering resources, and selecting appropriate teaching. As a faculty and somebody that I feel very strongly myself that although I am the Director of Professional Experience, I think it's very important that I also go into schools and actually assess these students myself. So I last year assessed quite a number of students myself around the Sydney region. Excuse me. And one thing that I found, and one thing that I think as a faculty we have addressed, so hopefully it won't be as much of an issue this year, but I found that lesson planning was relatively poor. And so something that you will see, and those of you that are new mentors, you won't even know that anything's changed. Some of you that are with us, that if you've been with us before, you'll go, oh, gee, this lesson plan looks a little bit better. That's what I'm hoping, is that we've really highlighted a section where they need to actually talk about differentiation, and also addressing the Australian curriculum, that they're looking at general capabilities and cross-cultural capabilities as well. So things like ICT, literacy, numeracy, Aboriginal Torres Strait Islanders, sustainability, all of those things, they should be putting that in. They should be mapping what they're doing to those sections, and they should also be very clear about how they're differentiating. As a tertiary supervisor, if I go in and I don't see that at all, which I have to be honest, I have seen that, it's not even there, I'm not particularly keen on giving a good grade, because I think we should be putting that in there. And they should be also putting a bit of a reflection down the bottom as well. This sets them up for when they're on final PECs, which I will talk about a bit later on. So please, if we have put this lesson plan template together and have revised it, love to have feedback on that, and would also love to have support from the schools that you can also put some of your own ideas and experiences for good and quality lesson planning for these students. That would be a fantastic help for us. Okay. Demonstrate a variety of teaching approaches when they're watching you, and encourage the TES to critically reflect on their own performance, which will happen in your debrief after the lesson. Provide feedback for most lessons taught by the TES. So look, you may very well be with a student, say they're on final prep. So you may be with a student that starts off on a 0.8 or an 80% load, and they build up to a 100% load. So you're basically, towards the end, you are watching every single lesson that they teach. You do not have to fill in a form for every single lesson they teach. All we ask for, and I'm just going to wave my cursor around here, hopefully you can see it, is you sit down for 10 lessons and you fill in an Appendix IA lesson evaluation. Again, what you will be getting from our team, Emily and Jeff, is you'll get this guidebook I'm going through now, and you should have a Word version of this, which I love. This is what I use as a tertiary supervisor. This is what any tertiary supervisor that you might see comes in, this is what they will use as well, and this is what you will use. And because it's now Word Online, I can sit and type while I'm watching the student, get all my stuff down, so that as soon as the lesson's over, say, okay, can we go and debrief now? It's there, it's fresh. I don't have to go home and then work till 11 o'clock at night, filling in lesson evaluations, which is what I was doing at the start, because I was writing it all out by hand. So hopefully you'll appreciate that as well. So again, you do 10 for a 20-day PECS. If you've got a student that is on a 10-day PECS for whatever reason, you do 5, okay? So you might be sitting and watching a whole gamut of lessons, but you don't have to sit and do these Appendix IAs for every single one. Otherwise, you'll get nothing done in your day. Okay. Provide regular, ideally daily time to debrief, which we've talked about. Now, the other things that you also do, I haven't got it here, and I just will mention it now. You will also need to sign your record of attendance. So the student and yourself will put in their record of attendance. That needs to be signed. And in fact, everything needs to be signed. When I'm going through and I'm marking everything, there were 2 things that jump out that I need then to chase up. If I either see you or the tertiary supervisor give working towards all the time for everything, then I will be contacting you and going, what happened? What went wrong? Now, some mentor teachers get back to me and go, oh, it was only the first prac. I'm just scaffolding. Go, fine. I said, are you happy with them? Were they okay? Oh, yeah, they were fine. Great, not a problem. If it was in final PECS, though, I'd still go, well, no, we still have a problem, because they should be demonstrating or exceeding standards by then. The other thing that I'm looking for is signatures, because, I mean, these are essentially legal documents, because you are an external provider for us providing assessment, okay? So please, for your lesson evaluation, for your initial review, for your professional experience final teaching report, and for this thing called the attendance record, which you'll see, please sign it. Please make sure that the tertiary education student signs it. The amount I see unsigned, I've got to send them back. And I have a lot, like I've got 100 students normally to mark with all of these things. I'm sending a fair few back because they're not signed. So if you can just make sure that happens, that would be brilliant. Okay, so we have the lesson evaluations, have an attendance record, which is very easy, just sign and date it, what, the days they came in. You have an initial review. And that initial review, it's a very basic, it takes hardly any time at all. And it's just halfway through, and it's just basically, do you feel that they are meeting the standards for planning, for communicating, for behaviour management, for lesson sequence and those sorts of things? And it literally is a tick of the box for those overarching things based on the lesson evaluations, because literally the lesson evaluation that you've got that you're filling in. The rubric is basically put together under the sections of planning, communicating, behaviour management, and lesson sequence. And then in amongst that, we've combined elements from the 7 professional standards for teachers in those sections to create our rubric for you to fill in. And then the rubric is basically working towards, demonstrated, exceeding expectations. And because NESA now mandates that all PECSs, for want of a better word, that are taken by students, it's basically pass-fail because of the teacher shortage. As long as they're demonstrating or exceeding for nearly everything, they've passed. It's pass-fail, okay? Having said that, I might just jump back here too. Having said that, these lesson evaluations, although for me, I'm just looking at if they're signed, is they're working towards, the student wants to know a whole ton of information. And this is the real quality of what they're going to learn and their feedback. So at the bottom of each of the rubrics there, you have a fill-in section where you can talk about where they went well, the areas to improve, what they could look at next time. And because it's a Word online, you can just keep expanding it and just keep typing away as much as you want in there. Please do that because that will benefit them. And I think that's the sort of thing that they need to read and they need to know, more than me going, yes, you passed. That really is not quality feedback. The last thing that you'll do is the Appendix O professional experience final teaching report for every PECS except for final PECS. And when we get to a bit further down, I'll tell you what happens for final PECS. But for all of the other ones, including childcare centres, I mustn't leave out early childhood, you'll see, and it goes for something like 4 pages, and you're addressing all of the 7 graduate teaching standards, okay? And you've got all of the elements in there. So it's not just how well they taught and how well they planned or whatever, but did they engage with parents? Did they engage with PD? How well did they communicate with other staff? So all of those things that all of us that have maybe gone through full registration or any of those things, we've all addressed those elements in there. That's in that final teaching report as well. And you tick again, working towards, demonstrated, exceeding. And then you've got a space at the bottom for putting all of your comments. If the school supervisor is a part of this meeting, and I really would suggest that they are for the final one, they can put comments in as well. And then all 3 of you sign it. Supervisor, the TES, and you all sign it. Please sign it, please date it. Okay. For lesson preparation, you can talk about modifying lesson plans, set realistic aims and objectives, encourage careful consideration of teaching, and guide the TES's reflection on lessons. I think the main thing that I've noticed going into the classroom is a tertiary education student never really manages their time well. It's just so common, it's crazy. So that's probably one of the main things that you'll probably be finding that you're feeding back with a tertiary education student is doing, putting their lesson sequence in and their timings and knowing that maybe something needs to go out and they need to be able to pivot. Okay, so you'll be looking at that and also how they reflect well. One thing, I've got a what do you call it? A video for the tertiary education students on observation. And in there, I talk about what they need to upload because they need to upload 4 observations to me. And it's like a journaling observation in a 20-day PECS and 2 for a 10-day PECS. But what I don't want students to think is I'm there for 20 days and I only have to reflect 4 times. That would be awful. Can you please, and I've put this in the video, but it'd be great coming from all of you as well, can you please encourage the student to just buy an exercise book and reflect every day, put their notes in, put in what went well, what didn't go well, what could I do next time, and then also to watch my video and to also read the guidebook, because in there I've provided a link to NESA where it's basically a guide on reflective practice and going through the 4 types of reflection, and then some guiding questions if they're just really stuck. It's in the guidebook that I've got on Moodle. There's a video I made for them, and it's on Nesta. So if they're ever sat around there and there's really nothing for, and they're just thinking, gee, they're sitting there, they're not really doing a whole lot. Ask them if they're reflecting. Have you got your book out and you've done any reflections today? Because they probably do need to. Okay. All right, yes, it's talking about here a debriefing after the lesson. The mentor teacher may, yeah, so they might make their own notes. We talked about being a listener, talking about their strengths and weaknesses, what went to plan, etc. And then also confirming or otherwise the TES's own reflection. So, and look, I've had this not as a tertiary supervisor, but as a PECS director, where the tertiary education student was at loggerheads with the mentor teacher, and what the mentor teacher thought he or she saw was entirely different to what the tertiary education student thought had happened. And so you really need to be able to come to some sort of agreement as to what you feel is really happening. Now, if this is a major issue and this is actually causing the tertiary education student to be at a risk of failure, that's when you pull in the tertiary supervisor, and then that involves me. So we'll talk about that a bit further down. But yes, hopefully you're both on the same page. Quite often they are. Student teacher I mentored, and I went through, well, there was this, and it goes, yeah, I know, so we all know the things we do well and the things we don't do well. Okay. I won't say any more except for directing the TES's attention to special areas of need, e.g. gender issues, language background and literacy. If you find that your tertiary education student is not addressing the diversity in the classroom, you need to broach that with the student and talk about how we address diversity in the classroom and being inclusive, etc. Okay. The mentor teacher may, so this is basically putting units of work. Look, I understand that you may not be going from a unit and the day they start is day one of your unit and the day they leave is day, the last day of the unit. So I unless there's some sort of a moderation thing where you're all writing unit plans, I understand that they may not be writing a unit plan. If they get the opportunity and you like to do them with them, fantastic, that would be great. Help them with assignments. But at the end of the day, what we're looking for is quality lesson plans for that lesson coming up the next day. That being the point, they should be submitting to you a lesson plan at least 24 hours before the day. If they are being tardy with giving you either a lesson plan at all, or they're giving it to you late and it should have been 24 hours before and you're getting it on the morning, you need to speak to, probably in the first instance, I'd talk to the school supervisor. If it's still an issue, I would then go to the tertiary supervisor or just email me, because that's important. And I had one feedback from one student that wasn't providing lesson plans. Lovely student, thought that this person thought they were doing the right thing, but thought that they had to write a massive, huge observation journal for me every single day. And I had to say, no, I only need 4 for the whole time you're there. Please keep reflecting. I want to see, the mentor teacher should be seeing you reflecting in your book, but I'm only going to see 4 of them. And that's what I will assess a pass-fail on. The rest of it is all assessed by your mentor teacher. So if your mentor teacher's crabby because you're not submitting a lesson plan, that means you might fail. And anyway, after I had that conversation, this student then changed tack and then really focused on quality lesson plans. I still got 4 really good journal entries. They were lovely, but made sure that the mentor teacher was happy. So all of that to say, please make sure that if you're having issues with that, say something. Don't think that, oh, well, this is what Alpha Crucis does and I have to put up with it. No, 24 hours beforehand, and they should be good ones, and ideally they should use our template, or you might have a template of your own. By all means, run that past your students, say, hey, could you use this one? This is what our school uses, or whatever. Okay, assessment considerations, general information. Again, we know about the graduate teaching standards. I've already talked about that. Talked a little bit about the observation journal, which they do, except for all placements except for final PECS. So again, you should see your student with a little exercise book writing notes, not in class, may I say too. All right. So if they're wasting time and you go up to them and you say, particularly when they're new, and I've had this before where, students pretty new, and I've come up and I said, okay, you've done a bit of observation. We're about to teach now. Would you be able to come and help this student and help them with their science? And the answer was no. That shouldn't be happening. Okay. Observation happens outside the class. They might write, jot down a few things, but then when something's happening, they should be able to put that aside and get up and help you in the classroom, because that's how they're going to learn. Okay. They're not going to learn by sitting up the back and being disengaged. Okay. So that's really important, that observations generally happen a bit in the classroom, but mostly out of it. Okay. And that it shouldn't take up that much time that all of a sudden you're not getting what you need. Okay. So they're the main things. All right. Professional experience final teaching report. Okay, so the professional experience final teaching report is a major assignment. It's what we would call a hurdle task, because although we have external markers that mark it, like everything else to do with PECS, at the end of the day, it's pass fail. So we would really call it a hurdle task. For those that maybe have been in the teaching industry for a long time, and back when you were at uni, you never did this. Maybe for some of those that have done a similar thing, maybe for full registration, but not quite. The final teaching report is basically where you are looking at the demographics of the school, of the class, and then looking at the breakdown of the class, and then putting together a lesson sequence, delivering it, reflecting on it, moderating, and then finally reporting. So that's what it's basically about. Now, you'll find that they'll come to you and they'll ask you a whole ton of questions along the way. Feel free to give them guidance. That does not mean you have to sit and watch my teaching performance assessment video and bore you stupid, or you have to read the guidebook because it's long or whatever. That's there. They need to do that. Okay. But be there to support them when they ask questions. So what are they going to ask you about? They'll ask you for the school demographics. So things like they'll want to know what it says about the school on My School and NAPLAN results, and any other statistics related to the school and the demographics in the area. For example, where I was living before, we didn't have a whole lot in the way of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders. Where I am now, there are a lot. Okay, so things change depending on where you are geographically or whatever. And also, there may be statistics school-wide about things like, how they're achieving, maybe for literacy and numeracy or whatever, ICT and those sorts of things, or maybe how many are on an ESL program, or how many are on an IEP school-wide, all of those sorts of things they may ask you about. And if you don't know as a mentor teacher, if you know who to direct them to, then feel free to direct them on. They'll ask you, though, for your class as well. And if they're in a high school, they may say, well, can I have this grade 7 class? And that's going to be my focus. And they're not going to ask for every single class they teach, but they may go that one. And they will want to know the same things. NAPLAN results, how many are English second language, how many are on IEPs, how many have got, maybe they're on a behaviour modification program, stuff like that. All that sort of information. What generally have we got in the way of the mean scores for maybe literacy and numeracy or their science test results or whatever, but then also what's the range? Have we got like a massive range between students that have maybe got a teacher's aid support compared to the ones that are doing quite well and gifted and talented or whatever. So I'll ask you all about that. Then they'll put a 5-lesson sequence together, okay? So we're in consultation with you, and it could very well be, well, this is what we're up to in our scope and sequence. So your 5-lesson sequence will follow our scope and sequence. That's fine, not a problem, okay? So you negotiate that with them, and they need to come up with their quality 5-lesson plans, like I've been saying. The template for that will be, the template they'll use for the whole assignment comes from something called a consortium. So Alpha Crucis is in a consortium of 4 universities, and we have our own version of TPA. Now, if you're a mentor teacher and you look and you go, well, that's not like one that I had last year, and she was at so-and-so uni. That's why, because our universities are divided into what we call consortiums, and we, under AITSL accreditation, come up with our version. So you will see differences from final PEC student to final PEC student if you've got them from different universities. But with ours and the other 3 universities involved, they will come up with a 5-lesson sequence that you can go through and go, yep, that looks good, or have you thought about that, etc., etc. Out of those, you will then need to assess them on one of those lessons. So you can use that lesson Appendix IA lesson evaluation report and fill that in and provide feedback that way with them. I would probably suggest too that out of their templates, they've got something called a template 10, and I would actually use part of template 10 for that as well, and I'll explain why a bit later. Okay, all right, so you've got that, you put that together, and the other thing too, they may ask to record the lesson. We're having a lot of issues Australia-wide as universities with privacy and recording. So what our consortium has come up with is that if they can write a fairly accurate reflection of what happened in that lesson, and you sign it to say yes, and even write, yes, this is a true and accurate statement of how this class went, we're happy with that, instead of invading student privacy with videos, etc., etc. Some find that it's okay just to do an audio recording as well, but they must have some kind of documented evidence of the class, of the actual class. So they'll do that. You'll assess one lesson. That one lesson too, by the way, could be one of your 10 general ones. So don't feel like you've got to assess 10. Oh, now I've got to do another one. Now I've got 11. No, make it one of your 10. All right. So you do that. And then they go off and they reflect and everything. They might ask you about it, they may not, etc. They more often than not, they ask me, they email me all the time about it. They'll do that. They then will mark. I have no doubt that they should have done a diagnostic test or a pre-test. They'll do probably about 3 formative assessments along the way. They'll do a summative assessment. In the summative assessment, and I have no doubt will have done the whole class, because normally when I've had a mentor teacher and I said, right, that's your lesson, then they mark that whole class. In that class of marking, they will be keeping an eye out for 3 students, 3 case study students that they will have identified, and they could pick 3 for any random reason. But try and encourage them when they do pick their case study students that they're like very divergent. So they might be, might be one there that's ESL, one that's on an IEP. There's one that's just, in amongst the normal cohort, or gifted and talented, sitting on maybe a B or something, and then someone that's maybe just on borderline pass, whatever. But as long as there's a bit of difference. But at the end of the day, they will have identified those. They will have marked those 3 summative assessments. You will be moderating that with them. So what I don't want to see, and this is what we brought up a consortium last year, please, I don't want to see a thing that this was moderated by Mrs. whatever or Mr. whatever, okay, and a signature. It would be really good to actually see the summative assessments with their comments on there, and then yours with yours, and to see that you've actually collaborated and annotated those, and there is actual real moderation happening there. Okay, so that's probably one of the biggest things that you will be doing, apart from answering a whole ton of questions from them, saying, yes, you can have that class, and yes, I'll observe that lesson, and yes, they're your 3 case study students. You've got to moderate that summative assessment. When they've done that, they'll then provide a final report for that student. They may or may not show you. If it was me, I probably would, because one section of that should look like the comments section of a good school report to parents, okay? They may just go off and do it themselves. That's fine. That's their deal. But if they show you, they might ask you about it. All right, so that was a lot of information about final teaching report. All of that to say that now we have a thing called template 10. And in template 10, excuse me, okay, sorry about that. I'm going to keep recording though. In template 10, template 10 in the past had been used by tertiary supervisors, and they were literally in there for probably only 40 or 50 minutes for a very short amount of time, and then they had to answer pages and pages and pages put together by the consortium, which addressed things like how well did they how well did they liaise with other staff members? How well did they liaise with parents? Did they engage with professional development? Which really, I mean, wandering into a school for 40 or 50 minutes just wasn't going to answer those questions. So Consortium now have agreed that this will be the final teaching report for final PECS students. So if you've got a student on final PECS, for example, you may not know the codes, but I'll say them. They're one's called something like EDU 591C, EDU 500C, EXP 322, EXP 312. If you've got ones something like that, then right, and it will be provided for you. So don't stress about this. Emily and Jeff will provide the correct information for you. Rather than this one here that I'm waving my cursor around right now, you will get something called a template 10. And it's very similar to this professional experience final teaching report. It's just you've got a lot more boxes to tick. And yeah, there is a comment section on the bottom, but it's just a lot more tick the boxes in there. If you're confused at all with any of this, because it's a lot of information, and I will say this now, I'll say it again at the end, and I should have actually, excuse me, I should have brought that TPA stuff there. Sorry, I'll just leave that there for you. You can email me, and I would say email me directly rather than go to education.pecs@ac.edu.au for things that are like, things to do with TPAs, assessments and things like that, that it's not just about, oh, what date's this student turning up or whatever, like this kind of thing. Email me. So it's Jeanette.Boyle, JANETTE.BOYLE @ac.edu.au. Please email me at any time. I will also be emailing once we've locked in the mentor teachers, probably around about a fortnight before each PECS. We'll have probably not even that. I reckon it'll be closer to when PECS starts. I won't give the dates because I don't want to date this particular video, but around about close to the time that PECS starts, we'll hold a Q&A session. So if you watch this video, you go through the guidebook. If your questions are answered, great. You know, enjoy having your student go on your merry way. But if you've still got questions, go, oh, I'm so confused. Jeanette Boyle said all this stuff about TPAs. I'm a mess. Jump on the Q&A session and we'll run through all that stuff again. And we'll just run those Q&A sessions for, like, if they take 2 hours, they take 2 hours. I'll also record them because I found in the past that I put them on and teachers are busy people and they go, well, no, I've got this staff thing I've got to go to. I won't be there. Despite me, and sometimes I've actually put say 3 on, you know, one after the other, and they can't make it. We record them, and then I send the recordings out. So so don't stress. We have many ways of getting information to you. Early childhood centre school and class context. We, as I said before, with our courses, so at the moment we're running a Bachelor of Education Early Childhood and Primary and a Graduate Diploma of Early Childhood, and working towards a Bachelor of Education Early Childhood as well. All of those are accredited by CEQA, and they are taught, and the lecturers use the Early Years Learning Framework. You will find slightly different handouts to what the school-based mentors will have. In a lot of ways, they'll be identical, but the language will be different. So we're talking about learning stories and learning experience and indoor and outdoor play and all of the things that people that work in childcare centres and in a childcare based or childhood education and care setting do. It's the language that you're used to, the things that you're used to doing. You may find other assignments as well on top of what I would normally have students do going into PECS, which is basically your 10 lesson observations, your initial and final report. You may find students coming in the early childhood PECSs. And they might be talking about things like their e-portfolio. They might be talking about doing a student observation and writing up on that student and looking at their literacy and numeracy and all these things that's related to the lecturer of that unit, not me. Okay, so you will find that. And just like the ones in schools that have just, I've just talked about teaching performance assessment. With all of that, they'll probably just come in with a ton of questions and then they'll just get on with it and do it. Okay. But look, again, if you are an EYLF person and you're really worried about that kind of thing, in the first instance, by all means, email me, because lecturers change, and then I could probably pass that on to the correct lecturer that is involved in that embedded unit. Okay. Okay, roles and responsibilities beyond the mentor teacher. The AC professional experience team, which is basically me, Emily and Jeff. Our main role is to place students. My role personally is to then assign a tertiary supervisor, and then I don't really hear anything unless there is a problem with a student, and then I need to go through the risk of failure process with the tertiary supervisor and yourself. So normally you won't see me unless there's a problem. Usually, my role also, I like to do a certain amount of tertiary supervision myself and actually keep my hand in the game as well. And also my main role is quality assurance. I like to be able to improve what's happening, to keep on top of NESA policy, etc., and to maintain quality assurance of our program. So that's basically what I do. You also have the school experience supervisor. That could be the assistant principal, it could be the principal, it could be something called the director of studies, whatever. And that person, ordinarily will have come up to you already by now and said, hey, do you want to be a mentor? Done the timetable, as I explained before. And really is the first port of call that if you're going, oh, gee, I've really got problems here, that's the first person you go to. The second person you would go to is down here, is your tertiary supervisor. And the tertiary supervisor is the link between me and you, all right? And they will contact you around about the time that PEC starts, and they'll go, hey, I'm the tertiary supervisor for blah, blah, this student. Let's work out a time for me to come in. I know you're a busy person. Let's see if we can make it work. And they will come in and they will observe a lesson. Now, a lesson can be pretty vague and ambiguous, particularly if you're in a childcare centre or a primary school, or you're one of those schools that only has 3 teaching blocks for a whole day. So we say a lesson is between 40 and 50 minutes, or if say an activity ran for an hour, but sort of being a little bit sensible and looking within that sort of constraints. And they're not sitting there all the way from recess to lunch going, well, this is taking forever, and they're only paid within it, like they're only paid for a certain amount of hours to do the whole thing as well. So we've got to factor that in as well. Okay, so that's the tertiary supervisor. So again, going back to the tertiary supervisor, they'll go in, they'll observe the class. That is the person, if they come in and they go, oh, well, how's so-and-so really going? That's when you're sort of like, well, a little bit worried about them, we might have to, do some remediation, or might need to talk to Jeanette Boyle or whatever. That's their role as well. They will also, apart from talking to you, they'll talk to the tertiary student as well to see how they're going. Are they happy? Are they stressed? Whatever. They'll also debrief the lesson they just saw. If you can be a part of that debrief, it'd be great, because it's a good moderation activity. So therefore, you can see if you're all on the same page. 99% of the time, if I've debriefed with the mentor teacher, we are on the same page. I can't even think of a time where I haven't been, okay? And it's actually good. It's a bit comforting for you to go, oh, okay, I've seen this as well, right? It's not just me, okay? And yeah, so it's really good for that. Again, signatures. They will fill in one of those Appendix IA lesson evaluations. They'll send it to you. You need to sign it. The student needs to sign it, then you email it back to them. If that doesn't happen, then I'm sending it back going, can you please get these signatures on there? So please sign and date. Okay. All right, frequently asked questions. That's just the 8 or 7 professional standards for teachers that you all know. Concerns about a student's work. So if you've got concerns about a student's work, I'll go into more detail about the risk of failure. If you've got a student that you believe is a risk of failure, your first port of call would be the tertiary supervisor, particularly if they're in that day. And then And that would be in consultation with the school supervisor as well. So don't go racing off and talking to the tertiary supervisor until you've spoken to the school supervisor first. And that supervisor may go, well, just come in and just have a look first, or they might get someone else to look, or they might go, yep, okay, yep, I'm happy with that. Let's talk to the TS. That TS or tertiary supervisor will then contact me. I will then contact your school, and I'll arrange a meeting with myself, the tertiary supervisor, the school supervisor, and yourself, or selves if there's more than one mentor. And what we do then is we then look at remediation. Remediation essentially is this. They either have the how can I say, they are shown the things that the areas that they need to improve, and they've got until the end of prac to improve those, and then they pass. All right. So if they're early enough in the prac, you may say, well, look, I think we've got till the end of the 20 days. I think we're fine. Go, right, fine, let's do it and see how we go. It may be that it's getting towards the end of PECS, or you can see looking at it, it's like, I can't see how this is going to come together by the end of 20 days or 10 days or whatever. That's when we would negotiate an extra 5 days. If the school is happy to have that student for an extra 5 days, they stay for an extra 5 days, and then I supply you with another form to upload, and it's like a table, and that table addresses all 7 of the graduate teaching standards, and they need to show competency in all 7. If you're happy that they're showing competency in all 7, then they can pass. If they don't, you let me know, and then I assign a fail, and then they go through something called intervention through the university. To be honest, I know it's a hard thing to fail students, but I would rather see students coming out and graduating that we all feel confident that they are going to be quality teachers, that I would have teach my children, and that they're going to be a quality teacher in all aspects of teaching, in their management, their time management, in the way that they interact with others, all of these things. And that's why that grid that we would give you for the extra 5 days addresses all of those 7 graduate teacher standards, because it may be an issue with how they're interacting with others. So they may be very, very well versed and have their planning absolutely amazing, and they've just got a fantastic program put together, but their communication with others is abysmal, and could be things like that. So we've got to make sure that everything's addressed. Okay, student wellbeing. You might have a student, I haven't had it in my time, and I've only been there with Alpha Crucis a short time, but haven't had it yet, but could happen, where we have a student that has got mental health issues, or it might even be just like health issues or anxiety or whatever. Let me know, and we will then talk about that as a faculty. We have our leadership meeting. We have our leadership meeting with the head of undergraduate and the head of postgraduate every week. They just come under different banners from each alternate fortnight. We would talk about this and then talk about a way forward. And obviously, we'd have to talk to the student as well. And it may involve something like, okay, going away and having mental health help or something like that. Just trying to think of their mental emergency. I just can't think of the name of it, but that's right, the mental health first aid. They might have the mental health first aid process happen, and then they might have to come back on board later or something like that. But that would be one that we would have to address at the time and come up with a solution that suits you and suits us as well. Payment information. As it says there, we're under the Fair Work Ombudsman. If you've got nothing to do, you can always click on that and have a read. I'm sure you're all busy people though. And yes, and probably more importantly, I'll just read the bold bit. At the start of the professional experience, the mentor, teacher or teachers will receive an email containing a link to a form requesting banking details, tax file number, etc., etc. This will be processed at the end of payment. It's a good idea to have this information ready so that your payment can be processed more quickly. Additionally, you can expect a phone call from the HR team to confirm your details. If you have any issues at all, some places prefer, particularly childcare centres, childcare centres sometimes want to be paid as a centre, and then others are happy, no, you pay the mentor educator, that's fine. Schools more often than not want the mentors to be paid, and if they say split, they'll split it up 3 ways or 2 ways. Rarely will a school say that give give us the money or whatever. And of course, we've also got an issue at the moment with the New South Wales Department of Education where we're looking at actually pay rates for teachers. So for definitely a New South Wales Department of Education school, mentor teachers get paid. If there are issues with that though, please, you can contact me, but the person that would actually really look at that is a man called Jake Schultz, our operations manager, and I will just spell that out for you. So Jake, Jake Schultz, SHULZ, there's no T in there, at ac.edu.au. But if you're unsure, email me or email the education team that would have been in contact with you if you've lost or you can't find this or whatever. Yeah, we've got 10-day placements and 20 and 30-day placements. More often than not, you'll have a student with a 20-day. Early childhood is probably the one that you'll see a 10-day placement, or in early childhood, you may see some going part-time. Other like school PECS placements, we don't. It's from there to there. There's no part-time. Early childhood's a little bit different. So you get that. Sometimes you'll get 30 days, but look, to be honest, a lot of them apply for 10 days, what we call advanced standing, based on teachers' aid work that they've done and things like that. So more often than not, they're back to 20 days. Student absences. If a student is absent, there is a form they're supposed to fill in, so please make them aware of that. It is on their Moodle shell. If there's a critical incident, maybe you've had to have a lockdown, like a serious lockdown at the school, or maybe they fell over and hurt themselves or whatever, in the Alpha Crucis Moodle shell, they need to fill in that as well. And of course, obviously, you have your own paperwork and processes that they need to follow as well. Student documentation, everything's meant to be up to date. I think I've hammered that home about particularly lesson plans. That's the one that I've hammered home the most. These are your appendices, but just bear in mind that you'll get Word versions of particularly the lesson plan one from Emily and Jeff. So that way, again, you can sit in the classroom and start putting in feedback there and then, which I find is quite handy. My tertiary supervisors have loved it. We've changed that mode and they've loved it. But these are the appendices. You've got a checklist here of all the things. Well, a lot of these stuff here should have happened before they even started. But then the things that they need to do as they come in and day one, etc., etc. You won't have a lot to do with that because really by the time your student's in, they should be up to about there. Yeah, so that's that one. That's the old lesson plan. So expect a better one than that because I'm actually working from a document that is still got this information in there. For people that are in childcare centres, they for the first PECS, they have to do a self-evaluation. I get a lot, well, not, I used to get a lot of emails of confusion with that. And what is this self-evaluation? And I don't get it. It's just basically a self-reflection. For those students, if they're looking at this and they're going, well, we didn't cover all of this, that's fine. Just ask them to put in as many things as they can and to reflect and to assess themselves for as many of those things as they can. And you can actually negotiate together and go, right, I would like you to reflect on yourself on that, and that. That's fine too. And again, that is for those that are doing the early childhood ones. And actually, I've got it up there. EXP 244 is the main one that you'll see that one come up. Lesson evaluation, that's the one that you'll fill in. So you'll see that we've got the graduate teaching standards there. Bit of a mixed job in there, and then we put them into those 4 sections: planning, lesson planning, communication, classroom management, teaching and resources, lesson sequence. And then down there is your bits where you type in. And in your Word version, you'll be able to just type, and it'll expand away. Please sign, please sign. Initial review down here. Again, as I said, it's very basic. Professional knowledge, students, content. So again, mirroring the graduate teaching standards by AITSL. Professional practice, being safe, planning for professional practice, etc., etc. And you're just going, working towards, demonstrating, or exceeding. This is their first initial assessment. Just excuse me for a minute. excuse me, for a minute my phone went off again. Okay. So basically, if you are filling this in, you're filling it in about halfway through the prac, and it's just like a, how can I say, it's basically like a formative assessment, okay, just so that they can see how they're progressing. And if you think they're mostly working towards at this stage, particularly on first prac, that's fine. That's not a problem, okay. And you put that in, and again, just make sure that you're all signing. This is the record of attendance, so it literally is, this is the day, that's the times, etc. Make sure that they're signed there. Make sure in particular that you sign down the bottom there. Again, that's where I'm always chasing students and mentor teachers up. Final teaching report here. So again, this is, again, you put at the beginning here whether they're working towards demonstrating or exceeding expectations, and not encountered. You're probably not going to see it so much there. I mean, you wouldn't have a not encountered for a whole prac, but you'll see it more here. So there might be particular parts of the professional standards or the graduate teaching standards that, that those particular elements just never came up in, particularly in 10 days. Sometimes 10 days you can't get it all in, and you just go NE not encountered, and that's fine, particularly when you, maybe it's an initial PECS or maybe an early one, knowing that by the time they get to the final PECS, they've got that template 10 for schools, or in an early childcare centre there, they should have completed their teaching e-portfolio. That by the end of it, these things will have been covered, okay? You'll see more in here that we are now going through those professional standards for teachers. So there's your know students and how they learn, know the content and how to teach it, plan for and implement effective teaching, etc., all the way through, right through to number 7. There's where you type all your little bits in there and say what you want to say. There's where you sign, there's where the teacher education student signs, and there's where the school supervisor signs. I don't always get a comment from the school supervisor. It's nice if you can, but I realise that, you know, the schools and childcare centres are busy places. We can't always do that. So, but if we can, we try to get them as well, as much as possible. If you're unsure of what to write, there's some ideas of what to write in your final teaching report. And this, so you can also have access to the absence form, but tell the students that it's on their Moodle page as well if they've got absences. Same with this one, critical incidents. Tell the student this is on there. Well, all of it. Tell the student everything is on their Moodle page. Like all of this is on there. So you've got that as well. And these are the standards for a CEQA, because obviously we keep talking about AITSL and NESA, and of course the CEQA is under AITSL, mind you, but this is one that's more geared towards early learning and childcare centres, and yes, speaks to that cohort a lot more directly there, particularly when you're writing the final teaching report. More information about the TPA, but again, as I said, primarily just you'd be answering a whole ton of questions, looking at a lesson, looking at their lesson plans, assessing a lesson, probably helping them record it, and then moderating their summative assessment. That's basically what you'll be doing. And there's the some of the protocol there. If you do use a video, you need to get prior permission from parents. That's a pretty important thing. Certainly at Consortium, we decided that probably the easiest way is they write a reflection and then you write and say, this is a true and accurate statement of what the class said. That's probably the easiest way to go. Collection of annotation of authentic evidence from TS is the process at the heart of demonstrating 7 graduate standards, suitable types of evidence. Yeah, I think this is mostly going to come collecting evidences. That's probably getting a bit dated, because that's probably more like back in my day when I went through and your final portfolio was collecting evidences. But where that will come up probably mostly is the teaching performance assessment, where they'll collect evidences of students' work from the summative assessment in particular, but also some formative assessment. So that may come up there. Apart from that, I don't normally see evidences being collected. Certainly from me, Probably if it's an embedded unit, say it's our early childhood one, the lecturer may ask for evidences to be uploaded from the student. Again, I'm always asking the students to de-identify stuff. If you can do the same, if the student's saying, hey, can I take a photograph of this for my TPA, just remind them they need to de-identify what they're photographing and uploading. And that is it. So that is a very, very long session. What are we up to? I said half an hour. And I can't see a time there. But anyway, that's everything that you need to know for now. As I said, you'll get an email from me fairly close to when PECS starts, particularly if there's a school holiday straight before PECS. I try to make it, say, about a week or so within the start of PECS, so it's fresh in everyone's mind. And then I'll usually have like about 3 sessions, because I know everyone's got timetabling and things happening everywhere. They're overnight. They're usually about 7 o'clock at night, so you've got time to staff meeting, go home, get the kids fed, put them all that stuff, and then we start about 7. And it literally is drop in and drop out. So if you can't get there till 8 o'clock and you've only got one question, that's fine. Just drop in, ask your question, drop out. And then if you can't make it to any of them, I'll record it and you'll get a recording. And yeah, and that hopefully will answer all of your questions. You've got the guidebook that you get from Emily and Jeff and everything you need to know. Lastly, again, that email address, if you want to actually ask me anything that's particularly related to something big and more pedagogy or assessment related, like final teaching assessment or your teaching performance set, like big things like that, email me at Janette, JANETTE .Boyle, BOYLE @ac.edu.au. If it's a general one of, I don't know, it might just be something to do with the date that the student's turning up. It's just like housekeeping stuff. Email the PECS team, and that's education.pex, PEX, @ac.edu.au. Other than that, I hope you really enjoy having your student, and it's a fulfilling experience for you as well as the student, and we'll talk to you later on.